Hey South Rock, today we are covering Acts chapter 6, verses 1 through 7. It's only a few short verses, but there's a lot packed in here, and the introduction to a very key concept of the church and how we function today. First thing to note, though, is that in the very first verse of this section, we see the very first internal issue pop up within the church. Up to this point, all we've read and seen is about how great the church was doing and how it was growing. In fact, the only issue was an outside pressure from rulers of the day because things were going so well that they felt the apostles were a threat and had them arrested. So this is the first instance of an internal conflict. There's two groups noticed here. The first is the Hellenists, which were Jews from Greece, and they read the Greek version of the Old Testament, and the Hebraic Jews that were native and read the original Hebrew Old Testament. Some of each of these groups had become Christ followers, so they were both represented within the church body at the time. The complaint they lodged was about the appointment of the daily charity allotment. The Hellenists felt as though their widows were not getting a fair shake. The interesting thing to me here is not that it was brought up, but how the apostles handled this complaint. They used this opportunity to appoint 7 men to handle this task. Why is this important? This is believed to be the first introduction to the concept of a deacon. It's also important to note that why the deacons were instituted. It wasn't because the apostles felt that it was beneath them or lowly work to be at the distribution of goods. It's easy to read it that way. If you read the verse, it says, "It is not right that we should give up preaching the word of God to serve tables." If you wanted to, you could say that the apostles are saying that preaching is more important than serving in that role, but that's not what they're saying at all. What they are saying here is that they can't possibly do both well. They can either preach well or serve well, but to split their time would cause them to be effective at neither one. They knew their preaching was effective. They'd seen the results of that, so they asked for deacons to work in the service role within the church so that they can continue to preach to the crowds. This is such an important concept. A church cannot function with only staff doing the work. It takes all of us using our gifts to serve those both in the church body and outside the church body. We are blessed here at South Rock with some amazing leadership in our elders and deacons. They are such a blessing to us as a staff and to you as a congregation. But just because you don't have that title attached to your name doesn't mean you can't serve in a role that helps the ministry of the church. And so that's my challenge to you today. What are you doing during this time to help the ministry of the church? Who are you serving? Who are you checking in on? It is incredibly important during this time that we as a church body support each other and continue the ministry of Jesus. Thanks for joining me today, and have a great rest of your day.